Hello, folks. Welcome to the COBIT 2019 Foundational course offered by EC Council. My name is Karthik Jagadish, and today I'm here to provide you a quick overview of this holistic framework for the enterprise governance of information and technology. So, what exactly are we looking at here? We're talking about COBIT being a framework that's designed to support the governance and management of enterprise IT. COBIT as a framework helps organizations to deliver value to various groups of stakeholders by putting their needs first. It also assists organizations in achieving their goals by partnering IT with the rest of the business rather than treating it as a separate entity. Of course, there's a lot more to it than this. COBIT, and even more so, the COBIT 2019 version is customizable. In other words, it can be tailored and can be used by any organization regardless of its size and industry. The courseware is broken down into 2 volumes for ease and convenience. Each volume has multiple sections or chapters within it. As COBIT is based on a number of key concepts, our course roadmap will explore each of these concepts in great detail. So some of the important modules that we'll go through as part of Volume 1 are initially with the introduction to the learning objectives, the course description, and important requirements around the exam in order to prepare for the exam. Then we'll talk about key concepts in terms of EGIT. So the module number 2 here talks about EGIT, why it's essential for organizations, and how they can benefit from enterprise governance of IT. We'll also explore the COBIT framework, an introduction by going through the history of COBIT, the key benefits of COBIT as a framework in the context of governance and management, and then we'll talk about some of the key stakeholders, both internal and external stakeholders that are part of the COBIT framework. We'll then move into section 3, which is about the enterprise governance of IT principles. Now, within the principles, there are 2 sets of principles, which are the system and the governance framework principles. We'll explore each of these principles, try and analyze how these principles apply to an organization's enterprise governance of IT. Then we move into governance and system components. Now, these components were formerly called as enablers in the previous versions of COBIT. And these components can be either generic or they can be very specific to an organization. In other words, it can be tailored. So COBIT 2019 introduces 7 different components. We'll go through those components and see how they support the enterprise governance of IT. The next module talks about the COBIT core and the goals cascade. So within the COBIT core, of course, we'll explore the various processes and how those processes are broken down across the 5 domains, that is the 5 domain structure, and we'll also explore the goals cascade, which basically talks about understanding stakeholder needs and mapping that to enterprise goals, which in turn are mapped to IT goals. Finally, we'll talk about focus areas and design factors. Now, these are new and introduced in the COBIT 2019 framework. And these elements typically aid the alignment of the framework to your organization's specific needs. So we'll explore what focus areas are and what the various design factors are. So that should conclude Volume 1. As we move on to the second volume, we will do a quick recap of all the topics that we talked about in the previous volume. In other words, we'll look at all the content and summarize that within the context of Volume 1. And then we'll move on towards the governance and management objectives again, but here slightly different from what we did earlier, whereby we look at the purpose, the objectives, the overall structure of these governance and management objectives, and how they relate to different components within the governance system. We then get into performance management, which is extremely important because when we talk about the COBIT performance management, also known as CPM, it looks at and it tells you how well your organization's governance and management system is working along with all of its components. So it's very important to take that into consideration as well. We also look at the goals cascade, which basically aligns goals from an enterprise standpoint to IT, and these align with stakeholder needs, etc. We then talk about the last 2 topics, which are about designing a tailored governance system within the context of a specific enterprise, and then how to go about implementing that solution. So there are various steps involved within the design and the implementation of the COBIT framework, and we'll get into some of those details. Finally, we talk about the exam support and wrap up. So this is a separate section where I'll give you some pointers and tips on how to prepare for the exam. I will also provide you certain resources that you may sometimes not find it on the internet. So there are some useful content and information that you will be provided in the last module. So this would help you prepare for your exams prior to giving your COBIT foundational exam. So the question here is if there are any prerequisites, and the answer is no. There are no set prerequisites here. Again, it's very important to understand that the course is meant for both IT and non-IT business professionals who'd like to learn about the enterprise governance and management and or get the ISACA COBIT 2019 Foundation Certificate. So there are different people across different functions within an organization that may be interested in COBIT. So if you fall into any of these categories, you're more than welcome to take up this course because it's certainly useful in terms of understanding how an enterprise should basically manage, how it should govern its enterprise information and technology as well. And finally, there's some additional information. So the goal and benefits of this training, of course, is multifold. Firstly, the relevant knowledge gained from the course can easily be applied within the context of your organization to achieve higher performance and compliance. So that's a huge benefit. So there's a lot to take back to your enterprises and your organizations after this course. There's going to be real-world practical examples that I will provide while explaining some of the important concepts and the content of the course. You will get access to a wide range of practice tests and end-of-module questions, along with tips and pointers for exam readiness. Additional information on gaining access to ISACA's COBIT 2019 publications will also be provided in this course. Most importantly, the knowledge you attain from this training will enhance your chances to find suitable roles in the governance and management space. So I hope this makes sense, and I hope to see you guys soon. So we'll continue from here and move on into some of the key modules going forward. Thank you.